Hi guys, welcome to Robin Hood Diaries. Tonight, gotta figure that one out. Everybody, wherever they are, whatever time it is. Again, I'm trying to pack these shows as much as I can, and this is a big one. It's really why I went into social work. And from the weirdest places and spaces, as you can imagine, what else is new, right? So, I'm gonna try and tell you the beginning and how I fell into the beginning, what actually went down and why, and then a tail end of why it stopped for me after just a yearish. So I'm doing phone sex and I'm browsing The Advocate, which is a magazine probably everybody knows or a lot of people, and in the back of The Advocate was an ad for some social work, not case management like I fell into much later, but a form of, community assessment, training, and a little vague. So I answered it, and I got called in based on my resume. First of all, each call center had 3 divisions. But anyway, I managed 2 locations, Marina Del Rey and Van Nuys. And so that was a communications hub. Working, and then I had other administrative stuff and other stuff. But what really mattered was Tim and John, as we've discussed ad nauseum, my partner and his brother, and going from early 1988 all the way to 91 with that whole thing, as we've heard, the horrors of the late 80s and early 90s, they knew nothing. Point being, this study, as it were, it was called the Young Men's Study. This is not a gay study, okay? But, of course, that's obvious. We were so focused on HIV, and we were so far away from everything in terms of research. I mean, like eons away. So the Centers for Disease Control wanted to do a whole bunch of research on men who had sex with men. Now, that's the crux. If you can keep in mind that it was I didn't do counseling. I didn't fall into that kind of work until I did my clinical work later. And this is in clinics, hours in clinics. But this is more gathering research. Now, one of the reasons now let's go into why I think I was hired. Well, it was because I had done all of this volunteer caregiving and hospital savvy intensive dialogues with doctors and hospital ethicists who basically try to convince you to pull the plug. Sorry to any hospital ethicists. So I had that environment for 3 years nonstop. So I was also kind of a rebel, as we all know. And I was the only one on the study who was a native Angelino. There were some that knew Los Angeles, but they were all from different places pretty much. Maybe Eric, I don't know. So since I know the city backwards and forwards, every inch of it, and we all know why, there are several reasons other than that. So that is definitely another reason why I got hired. I knew the logistics of Los Angeles and what they needed for entree into these places, because we had to be able to do our research on the sidewalk, like in front of venues. So we had to do community assessment, not to get permission, but to really nail down what places that we're going to get the most research on men who have sex with men, who don't necessarily whatsoever identify as gay at all. That's not what the C.D.C was looking for. So speaking of the C.D.C, I'm hired on very late 93. We begin work 94. And again, this is heavy duty research. I would, my title was like community assessment level, whatever. Let's just say I was assistant research analyst. My boss was a research analyst, and I was out in the field doing, boots on the ground research based on a whole bunch of stuff, including knowing Los Angeles backwards and forwards. We were not only in West Hollywood, okay? Get that out of your head. We were at divey places on Western Avenue, Franklin, Fountain, places that were definitely not places you felt comfortable asking people, do you identify as having sex with men, blah, blah.